I am quite honored to introduce to you who do not know him, John Powell. But first, I cannot introduce him without mentioning the Burton family. Pastor Jack Burton arrived at Woodlawn Baptist Church in November of 1973 to a somewhat lost and hurting congregation. The aftermath of the bus accident and then the subsequent split of the church left many of us feeling lost, searching for a way to deal with it, to understand, to somehow make sense of it all. Pastor Jack Burton joined and began with us on that journey back. I believe God placed Jack Burton and his family at the right church at the right time, absolutely. It was Pastor Burton that knew and contacted John Powell and asked if he would consider serving this much in-need youth group as their youth minister. And thus began the journey forward with Pastor Jack and wife Janet and John and Judy Powell, shepherding their own way, I'm sure, as much as they were shepherding ours. John Powell was the right young man to step into his role as youth minister at that time. In his letter that I'm about to read, he introduces himself and his relationship with the Woodlawn family so eloquently. I will defer to him for that piece. John recently sent me his book, It's Never That Simple, and I want to show it to you. I have his contact information. I haven't gone through all of it. It's wonderful, and I thought it was fitting to share a line of the note after reading that he wrote me, included in the book, from John. Sharon, this book is a compilation of articles I wrote for the Abilene newspaper over the past years. The section Family, Loss, and Life's Uncertainties is my favorite. So at this time, I'm very honored to read these following words from John Powell about our gathering today. To my dear friends from the Woodlawn Youth Group, Judy and I are not able to attend this important remembrance. As I wrote this letter instead, I was flooded with memories, names, faces, far too many to include. I was also filled with gratitude. I do want to share just a few thoughts and memories. Two kinds of experiences open us to some of our greatest lessons in life. One is wonder, the other, suffering. Few of us, including me, make time for the kind of contemplation and focus that allows us to see the world through eyes of wonder. None of us, however, can escape suffering. The task is to learn what lessons come from our suffering. That is what this memorial service is all about. The important, life-changing lessons that come from the deep sorrow and confusion that began those 50 years ago. I did not know any of you when the tragedy in December 1972 took place. I was celebrating the Christmas holidays with my in-laws, and I remember hearing on television about a bus accident on a New Mexico highway that took the lives of 19 people from a church in Austin. I have a clear memory of thinking how difficult it would be for the church and the teenagers to recover from such an event. I had no idea that just a year and a half later, I would be at Woodlawn working as the youth minister with that very group of teenagers and parents. For 4 years, from 1974 to 78, we all worked and played and sang and prayed and worshiped and laughed and cried together. Those were transformative years for me, and I hope for many of you as well. None of us knew what we needed to do with all that grief and trauma. I certainly didn't. But we managed to huddle together to learn important lessons together. Some of the lessons I learned: none of us can do it alone. We need help carrying our grief and trauma. Sadness and confusion need a safe place to come out. They need safe company. I'm glad we were safe company for one another. I want you to know that you all were teachers for me. Aside from summer youth director gigs, Woodlawn was my first and only full-time youth ministry job. You provided me, a 24-year-old kid, when I arrived, with on-the-job training. When I left Woodlawn, I earned a doctorate in counseling psychology and then spent the next 23 years working at a university counseling center. Not surprisingly, my specialty became grief and trauma. I worked with thousands of college students, many of who had experienced recent trauma or significant loss. I am indebted to you all for helping me find that focus and for instilling in me a sensitivity I might not have had otherwise. Those university students were beneficiaries of your experience and of your teaching me. I learned a lot of things from my counseling center experience that I wish I had known while at Woodlawn. But that was then. We did what we knew to do, what we needed to do, and I trust that it was enough for that time. When many of us gathered about 25 years ago for a reunion, I used an image that has helped me over the years, and I want to share it again. The Old Testament has many stories of the patriarchs of the faith building altars of stone wherever something significant happened. On their journeys, in the middle of nowhere, they would pile rocks, pour oil on those rocks, sometimes sacrifice an animal as a way to declare that this was a holy place, a place where something significant happened. I like to think that over the years that followed, other weary travelers could find the stones and know that someone just as weary and perhaps just as lost had gone before them on this same path. Finding that altar gave them encouragement and strength to go on. I think of our time together as a process of piling up rocks for one another, building altars to signify the importance of what had happened while we were all there together. I am grateful beyond words that you all put rocks on my altar to remind me of our shared experience and to be a landmark in the wilderness when I feel lost. And I am grateful that I could put a rock on your altar. There are few things more sacred than that. With love and gratitude, John.